I'm coming in the same way now, so.
Apologies for the interruption.
Okay, we're now recording. First, let me introduce Craig Campopasso, an extraordinary author and cinematographer, and probably many other things, including, I believe, an experiencer. Craig has spent a number of years in the cinematic industry. He's been a producer, a director. He's also been a casting director, and as well as a writer, screenwriter, and so on. So without any further ado, I'm going to ask Craig to step in, introduce himself, go into a little more detail, and then he's going to talk about the primary subject of the first part of this meeting, and that will be his new book that is just coming out. Okay, Craig, all yours.
All right. Hi, everybody. I can see some of you anyway. How are you? You can't, I'm not going to hear you, even though I'm saying, how are you? Anyway, I have been in the film business since I was 15 years old, and I started my journey right out of high school. I was lucky enough to land a job on Frank Herbert's original production of Dune that was directed by David Lynch and produced by Dino De Laurentiis and Raffaella De Laurentiis, his daughter. I worked on that movie for 4 years and learned all about filmmaking and how everything is done, and especially sort of being brought into the Frank Herbert world of the world that he created in Dune. I think we're hearing somebody's background. Can you hear that? Because it's feeding back pretty bad.
Yes, I'll start muting people. Folks, you need to help us by checking and muting and staying muted if you would. Thank you. Sorry for the interruption, Craig.
That's okay. So anyway, at the same time, we made Conan the Destroyer. And after I finished working on that after the 4 years, Raffaella asked me, what position did you like? And I said, casting looked kind of fun. So she put me on her next movie, Taipan, that starred Brian Brown. And from there, I landed a job on Steven Spielberg's original Amazing Stories in the mid 80s. So yes, I'm dating myself. And was on that for about a year and a half. So at that time when I was working on Amazing Stories, my own amazing story, I say, happened to me. I began to become awake in consciousness through a series of visitations from universal master teachers. And this began in the dream states. And I would wake up and I'd remember, but I really wouldn't think that much about it. I would just say, wow, that was really a beautiful experience. And it would happen over and over again, and it would go on for a few months. And then after that, I would go and I'd be with them, but then I would wake up. My soul would wake up in their realm, and I knew that this was a real experience. So I started receiving just information without any words that I believe were being implanted in me, in my aura, which therefore transferred to my cells. And after a few months of that, what ended up happening was those two things. I would be in that realm. I would be standing before them. There were three beings, two very, very tall 8-foot beings with elongated heads, with master robes on. Their robes were very unique because their robes were made of tiny sun cells, which they explained to me was a representation of all the suns across creation, and that they could access the sun energy and solar systems at any given moment by just calling forth those suns. And so they're from the world of the great I am. And then there was a humanoid woman who was blonde, and she was from a twin dimension to ours. Now, when I would wake up in their realm, then I would wake up back in my bed and I would see their astral bodies standing at the foot of the bed. And then I realized that I had to take notice of whatever this was. And I had no clue what it was. I had no idea what duality was, what spirituality was. All I knew is I got up and I did my daily business and went to work and came home and had fun on the weekends as a young person. And so my life began to change. And one of the next steps that happened in the waking up process is, again, I went to their realm and they fed me a golden light that ballooned in my aura. And everything that was in this light, therefore, transferred into my body, into my cells. And they explained that all this consciousness was like a contact capsule. It was timed released, and when I would need this information, it would be available to me. So I went for the next 8 months is when the awakening actually began. And during this awakening, I saw the beauty behind everything created in creation. I started to see and feel what it was like to be a creator and to be a part of the network of beings who are in this beautiful realm of being fully conscious. And so everything I saw, I would sob for anywhere from 10 to 15 to 20 minutes. And I'm talking a good sob where my body was just shaking. And this would happen anywhere from 8 to 12 times a day. And I really thought that I was never going to be able to stop this sobbing. They were beautiful sobs. If I saw a person, I could feel who they were from the inside. I could feel and sense their soul. I could see the beauty within them, and that would make me cry if I saw something in creation. Now, mind you, in life, I'm a casting director primarily besides a writer. So at this time, I had an office on Sunset Boulevard. So if an actor walked into the room and I saw this, I have to excuse myself so I could go do my sob and actually come back, because I could see if they had actually, like for instance, there was a part where a girl was raped. So I was reading women and I actually saw that one of these women was raped in real life. And so that really sent me into a sob. And when I came back, she had time to think, and she actually confessed to me that this had happened to her. So she was really connected into it and was a brave soul to sort of work through it, because it helped her work through it on a personal level. So I went through these 8 months, and then the next experience was they actually ignited my astral body or my light body. And then I was able to astral travel outside of Earth's realm. So then I started going to other worlds and other planets and seeing what the life was like there. I remember standing on a stage and speaking before a plethora of otherworldly looking beings. And it was just such an amazing experience for somebody who was not even of this, who was becoming of this. And I'm a very happy, optimistic person. So I would share these experiences with my friends. And some of them were very supportive, and some of them just didn't understand of what it was. it wasn't that they didn't believe me, it's just that they didn't have the understanding of it, so it frightened them a little bit. But years later, they say, I remember coming to your house and you giving talks about all this spirituality that was happening to you. And now I'm in the same place that you are, and I just want to thank you. I mean, one was a very huge manager in the business who repped stars, and she did this in front of giant agents and everything at a lunch party. And I thought that that was really amazing. So anyway, I went to Mount Shasta, and I had an amazing experience there. Which was my masculine and feminine was split. And I heard the I Am speak, we are who you are who we are, you are to be what we are in thee. And at that point, after that experience, a heart indentation was on my forehead. And over time, I realized that's where we start to rule the heart rules the mind for service to humanity or service to universal kind instead of service to self, where the mind rules greed. So I came home feeling quite good. During this time, I had written a 400-page book about all these experiences. And I even had met Shirley MacLaine and had Shirley read it. And she was quite fascinated, and we had many discussions about it at the time. And then one of the main master teacher from the great I Am, he said, he came to me in a meditation. When I would meditate, I would get a click at the back of my neck that sounded like this. And then all of a sudden they're vibrating on my inner eyelids as if my eyes are open. So he was there, he was telepathically communicating. What would you say if I told you you wrote that book for yourself? I said, then I learned a lot about myself. And he said, now it is time for you to sit down and write the books that you were meant to write. And I want you to sit down. I want you to keep writing until you cannot write anymore. I don't want you to stop. I don't want you to edit. I want it to just be streams of consciousness as you're writing it out on the page. So this process went on for quite some time. And over time, these books, the title is The Autobiography of an Extraterrestrial Saga. And each book is subtitled. There are 4 books in the series now. There will be 7 in total. I'm working on 2 prequel books right now to it, because everybody wants to know what happened prior to the story, and then I'll finish it off with one sequel at the end. So anyway, the main person in the autobiography of an extraterrestrial saga, the first book is called I Am Tehran, and it is about Tehran is a Pleiadian titan who is a professor at Melchizedek. Now, at the University of Melchizedek, there are 490 planets that go from one end of the galaxy to the other, and these are called university planets. His specialty is grooming and teaching starseeds who will be making their missions towards Earth for the consciousness raising program. And he also teaches mighty messengers who come in with a full-blown agenda of bringing new information to the masses. So through this, through these consciousness raising programs, I'm sure everybody here is fully aware of star seeds and raising consciousness and everything like that. So my my book agent, knowing about these 4 books that I have out now, called me one day and he said, I've got a great idea for a book. And I have the name of it. It's called the Extraterrestrial Species Almanac. Now, he knew about all of the extraterrestrial beings that I wrote about in the autobiography of an extraterrestrial saga. By the way, when I wrote that book, the master teachers, the fully conscious beings, created beings, what my experience in writing with them is that they always share who they are telepathically. So when you are in a telepathic communication, you are feeling the beauty and the depth of their soul at the same time, or the beauty and the depth of the experience that they're relaying. It's quite beautiful. So when I would sit down at the computer, they would sort of come in, step inside my body, so I would write from their perspective and from their voice. So that's why he really thought that I was the one to write this book. And I absolutely said, I can write this book. I said, that is such a great idea. He said, well, I can sell it. So he sold that book in 4 days, and I was writing it the following week. And I sort of sat back and said, well, isn't this interesting? I wonder if there's something out there in the ethers where people need to know about who these beings are. Who are the good guys? Who are the bad guys? Who are the neutral guys? Are we going to have some sort of form of disclosure? Are there going to be a lot more sightings? I'm still not quite sure, but this book was so easy to get done and to get made. And so anyway, so we know that there are a plethora of beings that are visiting the planet. And I couldn't write about all of them, but I chose the number 82 because I heard Paul Hellyer telling a story that he said that there are 82 confirmed cases of extraterrestrials visiting Earth. So that's why I chose that number. And so anyway, so they decided to make the book with the subtitle of The Ultimate Guide to Greys, Reptilians, Hybrids, and Nordics. But we sort of do go into detail of other beings and things like that as well. So an interesting thing that happened, because this is a MUFON book, by the way, it's the 5th MUFON book that is put out under their imprint through Red Wheel Weiser. I think the last one was Stanton Friedman and Kathleen Marden, the Betty and Barney Hill case, and I'm actually writing their 6th book now. But with MUFON, everyone knows what MUFON is, and I'm sure everyone knows what Project Blue Book is. So just to digress for a minute, when I was 12 years old, my mother told me that my father was my stepfather and that I had a biological father somewhere in the world, that she had no idea where he was. All she knew was his name. They dated for a brief time. She found out he was married with children. And so she sort of put the door in his face and was pregnant with me. So she was an unwed mother in 1959. I was born in October, so this happened in early January, I would assume, or late 58. I tried to find him many years over all this time on the internet to no success. A couple of years ago, I got a phone call from a woman. She said, I'm your 3rd to 5th cousin on your mother's father's side. I'm a genealogist and I'm looking for information. So I gave her the information. I connected her to my mom's 2 living sisters. And I asked her if she could find him. And she said, I can find anyone. So she actually found him about 6 months later. She wrote me and said, he passed away in 2006, and he's buried at Forest Lawn. So I went to Forest Lawn the very next morning and went to the front desk and asked if they had a name when they were called to bring the body in. And lo and behold, they had a name, but not a phone number. I came home, I looked it up on the internet, and there was a 74-year-old man living right around the corner from me, literally around the corner from me, and had been living around the corner from me for probably 15, 20 years, right? So I wrote him a letter and said if he knew anybody in my biological father's family, if he could pass a letter on, and I put my picture in there. I got a phone call 2 days later from his son, and his son said, my dad got your letter. And I said, oh, is he a friend of Fred's? And he said, no, it's actually his half brother. And I said, you're my cousin? And he goes, yeah, I guess I am. And he said, normally we would think this is weird, but you are a dead ringer for Fred. And I said, wow. So I immediately set up a dinner with my new cousin Chris and my new Uncle John. And it went for 3 hours of nonstop talking. And an hour into this dinner, my uncle looks at me and he said, well, you know, your father worked in the Air Force. You know, he was part of Project Blue Book. And I thought I was going to fall off the chair. I literally could not even believe it, looking at the way that I have been into this since I'm 26. My whole body is ringing with chills right now, by the way. You know, that it's so amazing to find that out. And then I got to find out who he was. And I finally got pictures of him. I had no pictures of him whatsoever. I got his Air Force picture. I dedicated the book to him, and I told the story I just told you in the ET Almanac. And I put his Air Guard picture because he went in the Air Guard when he was 16, 17. His mother had to write a letter, and then he immediately went into the Air Force. So anyway, when he left, he actually learned a skill and went to work at Warner Brothers and became the head of construction. And I'm like, here he is. Here I am in the film business. Here I am doing work about extraterrestrials, bringing enlightened information to the world and telling these stories and bringing all of the extraterrestrials, their ships, the interior of their ships, the landscapes to life for people to connect into. So the Autobiography of an Extraterrestrial Saga books, every book has 80 or more illustrations. And in the ET Almanac, every being is illustrated. And in some cases, from the contactee cases, I was able to obtain real photographs of the extraterrestrials. So anyway, so when I started to write the book, what the publisher really wanted is they sort of wanted a thumbnail review on each species, their universal origin, physical characteristics, belief system, cosmic agenda, their technology, consciousness abilities, and their dimensional capacity. In the back of the book, I have also put what cosmic laws are for enlightened beings and cosmic laws are for beings that were once fully conscious but lost their way as well. They're two different sets. We also have a whole section about what the galactarian alignment of space peoples and planets are, what the starseed alignment is, what Melchizedek is, and there's a whole full-blown explanation about all of their different various craft and how they work, which is also in the back of the book. And then there is also a terminology of the extraterrestrial worlds for things that people might not understand that'll go into a little bit more explanation. So I was so looking forward to writing this book because I had read about so many contact cases, and I love the early contact cases because they were all. Yep. There we go. You got it? All right. So I was very excited because I love the early contactee cases. Of course, we're going to talk about Stranger at the Pentagon later, the Valiant Thor story, and the George Van Tassel story, and the Integratron, and Adamski, and all the people in those early days, because lots of people have sort of forgotten about who they are. But then there's a lot of these amazing obscure books, like Wendell Stevens wrote 61 books in total from contactee cases from all over the world. So I was given access to his archives. And if a lot of you don't know, you can buy all 61 of those books at ufophotoarchives.com. Or you can go through and purchase. They're only in PDF format. So anyway, I got to go through a lot of these, and I picked out my favorite stories, which I've got in the book, which are the Aryans, which actually is an Asian race, which is a book of his that was called UFO Contact from Aryan of Alberon. The Itapurians are really a fascinating race. It was so unique, and that's UFO Contact from planet Itaby-Ra. There's the Clermers, which is UFO Contact from planet Clermer, Possibilities of the Infinite. Planet Koldas, UFO Contact from Koldas, A Cosmic Dialogue. And of course, one of my favorite races as well is the Umites from planet Umo. And there are photographs of the Umo ships, and they have 3 lines going straight across, and there is 1 line going down the middle. And it was explained to me that the line on the bottom represents the physical worlds. The second, the horizontal line, stands for the invisible worlds or the etheric. And the third stands for the worlds of the soul. And the one in the middle that connects them all represents the highest eternal, bringing them all together. So, so these were some of the fascinating cases. And another one was about a hybrid race from Rigel, the Regalians, and which is called UFO Contact from Beyond Rigel, a Cherokee Girl's Odyssey. This being that basically looked like a human lizard man on a craft, brought I think she was 14 years old on board, connected her up to an apparatus where they could speak mind to mind. And she was not afraid of this being. She was never in any fear. But what was really interesting is because he had hooked her up to these transmitters, she was able to remember the entire experience, and that is actually talked about in the book. So another one of my favorite cases is the Clarions, which Maurizio Cavallo is having contact with. His book is Beyond the Heavens. And of course, the Apoonians, which is Contact from Planet Apu, Beings from the Future Among Us, which is by Ricardo Gonzalez, who is in physical contact with Ontaral. They're actually from Alpha Centauri, but because the beings there met them on the Apu mountain, they call them the Apoonians. So he's in contact with Antaral and Ivica. So we have photographs of them, or actually artist renderings of them also in the book. So anyway, we've got all the artwork. I use a bunch of different artists, which makes it for really having a really interesting dichotomy of how beings look, etc. And let me see. So I'll just read you a little thing that the publisher wrote about the book. It says, discover who the aliens are, the benevolent ones and those who mean us harm, and what they want from us. Here is the ultimate field guide to 82 extraterrestrial species that populate the universe. Fully illustrated throughout and includes real photographs of extraterrestrials, one of which I took with my own Minolta camera. I'll tell you about that in a minute. This is the ultimate field guide to the 82 extraterrestrial species that populate the universe. ET enthusiast Craig Campopasso explores the origins, physical characteristics, technological and consciousness abilities, dimensional capacities, belief system, cosmic agendas of each of the species, and what their favorite food is. I'm just seeing if you're paying attention. Look, I'm trying to look at all the faces if anyone's smiling. There's Bruce, he's smiling. All right, the species fall into two categories: benevolent races, which functions as the guardians of humanity, whose goals include helping people overcome duality, healing, and protecting. And two, malevolent races, which are responsible for abductions, cloning, and ultimate domination. We could really get into this whole hybrid thing too, if you guys want to, because it's very fascinating. This intergalactic expose will entertain all those interested in UFOs, aliens, ETs, sci-fi, and fantasy fans of the Marvel Universe, Star Trek, Star Wars, and other popular TV shows like Ancient Aliens, Roswell, and Project Blue Book are prime targets for this book that delves deep into who the real extraterrestrials are and what they want with the people of the Earth. So anyway, knowing and going, just to do this little quick marker here, is from my Tehran books and the entire program of raising consciousness and all of that, is everyone keeps saying, you know, why haven't they shown themselves? Why haven't they shown themselves? Because they're in the midst of a consciousness raising program here. And that program, once we reach a certain state, will be absolutely ready to receive fully conscious beings. And I'm sure some of you have had experiences. When I first had my experiences with them, like I said, you literally sob for 15 to 20 minutes because they are so beautiful inside. It's quite amazing. So anyway, I'm gonna talk about the extraterrestrial picture that I took, and I will we can talk about that, and then we can open it up to questions and stuff. If anybody is interested in learning more about any of these books, the website's autobiography of ANET.com. And the Tehran books are on the front page, and in other books is where you can get the ET Species Almanac, and I sign and personalize all the books for everybody. So I think it was 2017, I went to go visit my friend Chris Bledsoe. I'm sure you guys have heard about his case in the Carolinas. He took me down to the Fair River with our common friend Lori Wagner, and he was telling me everything about where everything happened, and then the house that he was living in at that time, they had abandoned because so much stuff was happening there. but it was, their stuff was still in it. So after the Fear River, he took me to that house and he was walking me through the backyard, which has a wooded area into the forest. Now, it was getting to be dusk. And as he's explaining everything, I just had my Minolta camera and I just kept flashing pictures. Never looked at them, just flashed, flash, 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 flash. And the next morning, I'm lying in bed in the hotel and I'm looking through them and I see that I have captured a person on camera. And this person has very short legs, a very long, wide, thick torso, a long neck, and a small, sort of roundish, almost oval head. And it's holding a light. And the minute I saw that light, I went, that's an interdimensional device. And then when I lightened up the picture, I saw the being was wearing goggles. And I immediately saw that this was how they see interdimensionally, like we would look through night vision binoculars, right? And so I couldn't wait to show the picture to Lori and Chris. Now, Chris has captured beings, all kinds of stuff on that property and others that he's shown me. The very next picture after the extraterrestrial were giant wisps of plasma falling from the sky. So anyway, so I showed it to them and Chris said, yep, that's what they look like. And he said, it's really strange because that being actually allowed you to take its picture. So the story I just told you, and I put all those pictures also in the book so that people can see and see about that. So, all right, I can see you down there, Joe.
Yeah, Craig.
Yeah.
I apologize. I've been kind of leaving you hanging a little bit. I do have. I finally got most of the issues resolved, with the exception of a couple of key people that I could not get in. Now, also with that being said, I did put together a slide deck, and I tried to follow some type of the format that I guess we had briefly discussed. Now, I can bring that slide deck up, and it kind of eases in at the beginning with your most recent book. Then we go through into another phase, and we can be talking about the stranger at the Pentagon and all that entails. And then at the end, we can talk about several of the other pieces of work, and then we can go into the Q&A. And also just to remind everybody out in the listening audience, use your messaging capability if you have any questions or comments for Craig, and we will make sure that it gets to him, and we'll go from there. Again, apologies for the technical difficulties. Zoom did an upgrade in the middle of our thing taking place here. So, okay, I'm going to bring that up, Greg, and I'm going to start at the very beginning. And why don't you?
I'll explain everything as I go along. And
Greg, could I jump in real quick and not to interrupt you, but could you share your camera with us, or are you not possible?
No, not possible.
Okay, I didn't think so. That's what I explained to everybody. No worries. Sorry to interrupt you, sir.
Yes, no worries. I was going to put up Tom Cruise's picture, but you know. But I look like him. So, all right. So you tell me where you're going to start. All right. So there we go. All right.
Okay.
You did a beautiful job with all of that, by the way. One of the artists at Red Wheel Weiser created this being when I saw it, because it wasn't a part of my original artwork. I was like, what? Wow, like that. And then I was like, I don't know if I would have put a reptile on the cover, but then I started looking at her and I was like, oh, she's not so bad. She looks like docile. and kind a little bit in her expression, but then book publishers want something to, when you're in a bookstore and you see it, you got to run over and pick that up. I mean, I know I would, right? So, anyway, okay, let's see the next slide. All right, there we go. Yep. So there's George. George said that about the book. And we've got Paul Hynek said that, which was really nice. Of course, Project Blue Book again. Yeah, Project Blue Book. I mean, that was great. I got to meet him there. Actually, Paul and I have the same agent, which is pretty cool. So I got to meet him a few times. That's my ship. Anybody want to go for a ride later? Shall we pick you up?
Absolutely.
Okay, good. All right, let's see the next one. There we go. So this picture I painstakingly brought to life a Valiant Thor, because you know all these pictures are so old. That's our short film movie poster. And we won a couple of best sci-fi short film festivals as well. And I'll tell you guys more about the feature film and all the other things we have coming up with Stranger after we get through all of this.
Okay, Craig, why don't we do this? Let's go back and let's do the panel discussion and see what type of comments and questions we might have about your most recent book.
Sure.
And then we'll go.
Absolutely.
Then we'll jump into this and go into this in as much detail as we can. So
that sounds good.
Okay, so first up, I'm not sure exactly who on the panel was able to, I know Frank had a problem. I think Nick got back in. Nick, are you out there? Nick Curto.
Yes, I am. I'm back, Joe. Thank you very much.
Okay, Nick, why don't we do this? Why don't we start with you? We're going to discuss at this point Craig's new book, the one that's just coming out. So you have any questions or comments for?
Oh boy, do I.
Okay.
First of all, the word is wow. What a great book this is. It was beautifully put together. And also I just got a comment that the trailer of the book, it looked like I want to see the movie.
I know, right?
Oh actually, my God, it was incredible. It was beautifully done. It was professionally done and very, very exciting. I had to make that comment right away. Just have a couple quick ones. On page 272, where it says otherworld terminologies, there are words that are used in the book, very specific words. I'll give you a few. They are the 7 super universes, Centennia system, Ancient of Days, Bovana, Orvanton, Angel Corpse, Paradise Sons. Anyhow, those are few of them. And I'm a Urantia book reader for about 35 years.
That's right. That's where they're from.
And when I saw that, when I was reading those words, I went, holy cow. And I looked to see on the reference that's in the back of the book, further reading on page 276. And the Urantia book is not listed, which means in my
it's in the front of the book, Nick.
I'm sorry.
It's in the front of the book. It's on yeah, it's in the front of the book. That's where Urantia wanted me to put it. Because if you can use anything from Urantia book, which gives you that, because when they brought me that book many years ago, it just blew my mind wide open when I was going through my spiritual awakening and understanding it. It totally put it in context. Oh, it's a paradise son. It's a created being. It's a fully conscious being. It's a dualistic being, and how everything is still the same, but everything has a little more schooling, right? And so to me, that is my favorite book of all time. And I always make reference to it. So Yes, it is in the very beginning of the book, the Urantia disclaimer that they wanted me to particularly put in the book. Yeah.
Okay, well, thank you very much. Again, I've been reading it for 35 years and studying it. I'm a member of the Urantia Society of Greater New York, and I've been a past president of that group. One last question. On your title of the book, I just want to ask you the word almanac. Usually that means every year. So my question is, are you planning to update each year because the word almanac is used on the title?
Well, like I said, my agent came up with the book title. They have had so many advanced sales on the book for all the bookstores. It's going to be in Barnes and Noble and all the regular bookstores as well, and lots of pre-orders on Amazon. They said it's done exceptionally well. And my guess is they'll probably want a follow-up book, which I've, there was a lot of different races that I didn't have the time to put in. I wanted to sort of give it a different, a culmination of different types of species and different things and good and bad and that kind of thing. I mean, the good news is the universe is basically populated with benevolent beings. There's the fractions that help keep us all on our toes, right? So, but yes, I'm so glad you are a fan as well and a student of the Urantia book as I am. And I have brought many people through my autobiography of an extraterrestrial books who have written me long, lovely letters saying, oh my God, thank you. Your books introduced me to that book. Otherwise I would never have known about it.
Wow.
So yeah, so I just love it. I'm getting the chilies right now.
Me too, by the way, yeah. Me too. One last thing, I have a podcast program, and next year I'm going to give you some dates. I would love you to be on it.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, just get my info from Joe or Frank or anyone, or Bruce. Okay.
So we'll do. And again, congratulations.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Nick. Okay, Jen Stein, are you out there?
I am here. Yes, I am.
Welcome.
Jen, we finally almost meet.
Well, actually, Craig, I think we met one time at the International UFO
Conference. Yes, because we had talked several times, and oh yes, we did.
We did finally meet briefly once. Yes.
Once, yeah.
Have a lot of admiration for you.
Me too.
I'm an East Coast documentary filmmaker, not nearly as successful or famous as you, but also trying to make it in this area. In fact, if I haven't sent you the updated Travis film, I'm happy to.
I would love that. You know how much we all love Travis.
Yes, and of course, Travis Walton's contact story in 1975 involved two species that apparently seem to be working in cooperation with each other.
Yes.
And that seems to be missed a lot of times by people. And also he walked right across a tarmac out of one ship into a building and walked by what looked like Tic Tacs. And now the Tic Tacs come to light. So I love how these bits and pieces of history, when you stick to the facts, as Canton always used to say, and as Lee Spiegel says, just stick with the facts, report as you see, don't try to change it. Just try to, stick to the facts because it may come to light or greater understanding later. So Travis walks right by these rounded shaped, he said they look like eggs, damn shiny eggs.
Yes. Yeah. I would love to talk to you about that because I'm writing book 6 for MUFON now.
Great. Well, I'm delighted.
Yeah. So you guys will love this book. I can't let out the context yet, but you will love it. It's so good. And again, wasn't my idea, it was my agent's idea.
Well, it's great. And Greg, I want to connect you also. I work with Ron James creating MUFON TV. And we'd love to do a specialty program on this new book. So I'll have Ron reach out to you because I think this is so needed, especially when this week in the news, hopefully everyone saw it, a former Israeli defense minister came out and said, oh yes, aliens are here. humanity is just not ready for them to reveal themselves.
Right.
I thought, wow, this is like about every 6 months we get a disclosure bomb.
We do.
I think we've had official disclosure ever since Luis Elizondo from the Pentagon came forward. But
yes,
I thought, wow, this is a really great piece. And of course, perfect for your book, because we need to understand who these species are. We need to begin to start to respect these people who have had contact and ongoing contact all their lives, and put the pieces of the puzzle together from the native and traditions, and from the around the world traditions. Every country you go to, there's a tradition. So I'm so impressed that you've done this, and I can't wait to get my hands on this book and read it.
Yay.
And it's just really an honor. Thank you, Joe, for putting this dialogue and panel and program together. It's really fabulous.
Thank you for participating, all of you.
Yeah.
May I just interject something that I think is interesting and poignant, if I may, and I don't want to get out of sequence or take a lot of time, but the other night in the pre-production meeting, we were discussing a concept that I've had growing in the back of my mind, and Jen, you just pointed it out, and that is the disparate researchers, incidents, and so on that all point to a growing continuum of the understanding that this is all connected in some way, shape, or form. And I think that perhaps the various researchers, not through any conspiracy, but have just been siloed by the very nature of what we do. And I would just step back for a second and say, is it any more reaching to think that there are not in the universe many different species that may in fact be visiting us, and so on and so forth. But I think the important point is that we're starting to see disparate events and points of view and research, and certainly, the connection with what Travis took place with Betty and Barney Hill, and all of the work that so many people have done with regard to this subject, that maybe we can step back a little bit. And that's what I've been trying to do. And we talked about this the other night, and trying to start now connecting all these dots because it all seems to be coming together, thankfully, at a much more rapid pace. I just wanted to point that out and ask you to think about that as we go through the rest of the meeting. Thank you.
Thanks, Bruce. Thanks, Jen. Okay, I think, let's see who else. Oh, okay. I see George Filer. Can you hear me? I know you're out there.
Where's George?
But I don't hear you. Are you there, George?
He might have his mic muted.
We've had some audio difficulties.
No, he's unmuted. So. I made sure he's unmuted.
Yeah. So. Okay. Well, in the meantime, I see Bruce Cornett is out there, and we do have a couple of bodies that weren't able to get in. Bruce, are you there?
Yes, I am. Yes.
Would you care to weigh in on Craig's new book?
I'm very excited about it. I really want to get that book and read it, because we need this at this time in our critical awakening to be able to bring together all that has happened. I mean, we've had books out before on the different types of aliens that have been reported, but this, I hope, will bring us up to date.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. How are you, Bruce? Good to hear you.
How do you, George? Yes, thank you.
Okay. I don't know. Do we have any questions on the chat or comments? Bruce, you see anything?
Working on it now, Joe.
Yeah. Okay.
Like I was saying before, what Bruce just went through was, I had to take a step back when my agent first called me and presented this to me, and I wrote a little proposal about the book, sent it to him, and he sold it in 4 days, and I was literally writing the book the following week, and I said, this never happens.
No.
Books are not bought like that. It's always this long, arduous, horrific ordeal, and everything was smooth as silk. And I just went, the universe must want this. There must be some kind of timestamp that this book needs to be out there. And I think it is. I think maybe some even bigger, greater things are going to happen in 2021.
And if I may just add one thing, I'm sorry.
This is Chantal, and I wrote the comment about, I was so worried that I wasn't going to be able to get in on the call because I thought that so many people would flood it. And my gosh, there's only 22 of us here, and it's such a it's such a controversial topic. I'm so surprised. Why do you think that is?
We just we're working on promoting it is why. It's just getting the word out to people that.
There's one other thing as well. What I've found from feedback that I've been getting over the years that we've had our library group, and the library group is they did show up and they like showing up. For some reason, the electronic meeting, a lot of people are not really into that. Maybe it's because
do you think that it's being censored somehow, the publicity for it?
No.
Okay,
I don't think so. No.
Good.
I think it's self-censorship that people. Well, first of all, we've been saying that we're going to be uploading these to the YouTube, so you don't have to be there if you don't plan on participating. In an active way, you can see the whole thing and see the people and everything. So I'm suspecting that a lot of people, I'm getting emails asking if it's going to be uploaded. So we have the holiday season here now, and a lot of people, for whatever reason, may or may not be able to make these activities. Okay, with that being said,
I have a question. I do have a question for you that was actually, if you want to go ahead and go with the question, Joe?
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, sorry. Mindy Gerber said, Craig, do you ever, and this is a wonderfully poignant question, Craig, did you ever find out about your father's actual involvement with Project Blue Book? And that whole story is amazing too. I mean, synchronicity is best.
It's quite amazing. So his only brother, who I'm very close with now, and he has 3 sons. I've spoken with 2 of them at length, one a lot more than the other. And one of them was very much into this subject matter. And he told me that he tried to pry out of Fred what he knew and that he wouldn't say a word. He was mums on the subject till the day he died. My uncle asked him a couple of times, who was not really into the subject matter, although he did say to me, I do like that show with that guy who used to be in the government about the Tic Tac. And I said, you mean Louis Elizondo? And he goes, yeah, I think that's his name. I like that show. So, and then my other cousin also tried to get out of him exactly what he did. I've come in contact with a lot of released Blue Book files as well, and have read through those. I've tried to find Blue Book files that might have his name on it, because a lot of them, their names are on it. Now, he was young. He was in his early 20s. My uncle said he was an extremely fast typist. So he said he could have been a paper pusher for a general, is what he surmised, but he's not really sure. Yeah, I'm just as fascinated as everyone else. So any government listeners out there, if you can get into a file and send it to me, thank you.
Let's follow on with your discussions about the actual book and the species. Jen writes, Craig, have you had any contact with any species? And could you elaborate on that? And then the second follow-on question, so I don't interrupt you again, is Susan Rogers was asking, how can we determine our star families?
Oh, sure. Well, as I told you the story in the beginning, my contact was in the astral or etheric. And when they came to me here, they were in their astral or etheric forms that they were projecting, right? So they are from the great I am, Those beings are actually in the book. They're called the Maramayams, and you can learn about them, but you can greater learn about them in the Autobiography of an Extraterrestrial saga books. And the Pleiadians, of course, that is my star family. And I remember when I was waking up and somebody said Pleiades, it resonated with me. My whole body just shook. I started crying. I started missing it, not even knowing what it was. It was, I just wanted to go there. I wanted to go home. I wanted to be there. And it took me quite some time to learn exactly what I was doing here in the very beginning, was bringing forth this knowledge. That's why they woke me up. That's why they put me through these processes, so that I could write from their perspective and share that information with people as well. So the main one, Father Jacobaba is his name, from the Great I Am. There was one experience that was probably one that really stays in my mind, and it happened in the 80s. And I was meditating on my couch, and I was in a really deep meditation, and I remembered seeing the white dove. When you see the white dove in meditation, it means you have reached the ultimate state in connection with the universe or into source. And all of a sudden, I got the click at the back of my neck, like that. And he's vibrating on the inside of my eyelids. He said, I want you to open your eyes and write this metaphor down. The truth of the triangle is the power of the pyramid. And I went, wow, that's really great. And I was so into this meditation that I stayed in it. And then I totally forgot to open my eyes and write it down. And when I remembered that moments later, I called him back, and he came back, he said it again. But when I opened my eyes, now this is in the middle of the day, it's like noon. I have all the windows open. It's bright and sunny and gorgeous out. I'm on the couch, there's a coffee table, and on the other side of the coffee table, as wide as you can spread your arms out into a giant circle, from the floor to the ceiling, was his soul. And it was a vibration of golden light. And inside this golden light, there were oval prismatics of gold. So there were these giant ovals. It's like they're cells, right? And all these are different color golds. And it's going woo, 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 like this. And that's what the noise sounded like. And it's going. So he was allowing me to connect with this soul energy. And then he danced around the living room, like moving all the way around. And in that particular apartment, I had 3 portals, one at the bottom of my bed that they came through at night, one in the hallway, and one in the middle of my living room that I could also see from the kitchen table or the living room. And then he went up the portal. And that was one of the most mind-blowing things I had ever experienced, because here I was seeing it with my own eyes. I'm seeing them in their astral bodies. Yes, I'm used to that, but I wasn't used to seeing something of this grand nature. And it was quite beautiful. And of course, that metaphor is how the creation works. And anyway, I go into great detail in that in the Autobiography of an Extraterrestrial saga books. And what was the second part of the question? I'm so sorry, Bruce.
The second part is, how do we determine who our star family is?
Our star family.
Is there a way to work through that?
Yes, there is. Lots of people have asked me that, and I'm going to give you one of my friends' analogies of what happened to him. Mind you, this guy is 6'5". He's very connected into wanting to know more about this and spirituality, although he has not had any experiences. But he did have an experience when I was with him with the Valiant Thor crew, which I can tell you later. And then, and he would always ask me, who do you think my star family is? And I said, I know, but I'm not going to tell you. That's something you got to learn on your own because it's in you. And when you find it out, you will find complete joy and you will figure it out. And anyway, so I think I talked to him a couple months later, and I said, "Did you ever figure out who your star family was?" He said, No, I have no idea. I said, what have you been doing tonight? And he goes, "Oh, I've been on the internet for about 2 hours researching the Pleiades." And I said, so there it is. But if you really want to know who your star family is if you're reading the ET Almanac and you're going through it and you're looking at reading the descriptions and actually looking at the photograph, if something resonates with you, then do a little meditation. If you don't meditate, just sit, keep your eyes closed, and just focus on a candle, right? Just focus on that light and allow that light to just sort of be there. Try and keep your mind calm, and then just say, I would really like to know who my star family is. And when that information is right for me to know, it will organically happen, right? It's so amazing how many star seeds are out there. I mean, I meet them all the time. They're like, well, I'm from Arcturus. I'm from here. I'm from there. I'm from here. And I meet some people that I can, because I've become very empathic since doing this, so I can really, it's a part of who you become when you start edging towards becoming fully conscious and you connect to source. And some people I'm like, wow, it's like I could see what the beings look like, but I don't know where that is. And I'm not going to tell them, of course, because if they're not going to bring it up to me, I don't want to, because some beings look so different and so strange, and some can be very scary looking and be absolutely loving on the inside as well. So, all right.
Okay.
So what else?
All right. Why don't we move on to the next session so that we can get through everything that you would like to speak about, and I'm sure everybody would like to hear. So I'm going to change the slide. We'll see I think I'm going to change the slide. There we go. And again, I think you explained this one. Why don't you start right here?
I'm going to start right
one more time.
That's my spaceship. Anyone wants a ride today, because you're here, we're going to come pick you up. How's that?
Okay.
All right. There
29 Bradley.
All right.
Okay. All right. Well, why don't we, I'm going to, next one.
Hit the next slide. All right. So as we're getting into Stranger at the Pentagon, I'll just give everybody a little bit of info. Again, the website for the Tehran books is autobiography of ANET.com. And if you want to get the ET Almanac, just click other books and you can also order it there. I sign and personalize all the books when they go out. And getting now to Stranger at the Pentagon, the website is strangeratthepentagon.com. You can watch the short film on the website, or if you have Amazon Prime, you can watch it for free on Amazon Prime as well. So I have so much information here. So I'm going to kind of start at the beginning and sort of edge my way through. And so everyone kind of gets a greater overview of how this story occurred. Valiant Thor arrived on Earth on March 16th, 1957 at 8 a.m. in Alexandria, Virginia in an agricultural field. It was a prearranged meeting, so he was taken directly to the Pentagon. In the mid-morning, he was then brought to meet with Eisenhower, Nixon, the Joint Chiefs, and the rest of the FBI, CIA heads as well. He came with what we call a divine design that was to help eliminate sickness, disease, and how to prolong life. But of course, the greater nature was to inform the president about how the universe works and about atomics and all of the dangers that the world was heading towards. And it's interesting because in this document, it explained that, but in the same time frame, we have Salganda visiting George Van Tassel, who gives him the blueprints on how to build the Integratron, which prolongs life, eliminates sickness and disease, and is a time machine of sorts, right? So these are happening in the same time periods from Venusian beings. Now, it is also thought that Valiant Thor could be from the Pleiades and that Venus is a stopover, right? So the planets throughout our galaxy are populated on the inside of the planets, and that they have such super technologies because they are governed by created beings, planets as well, and they can take a sheet of paper, like an energy form of a sheet of paper, put it underground, and they can push up and down to make a floor. And then what they have is what they call a synchrotron sky. And these skies regulate temperature, daylight. They can go from day to night. Some floors stay on day, some floors stay on night. Whatever you would like to experience, you can go to those floors and experience. Now, they also have the creational code, so they can create rivers, streams, lakes, anything that they want. They can also do this on their craft and on their ships. Dr. Frank talked about visiting the Starship several times and what he actually saw and experienced there. I'd been able to see it in my mind, and it's really quite spectacular. It's like Eden. It's so beautiful. It's so beautiful. So because they are in these confined spaces on their craft, their motherships, starships, Victor-class fleet saucers, within the planetary fields, they are able to keep a resonation field that keeps them healthy, young, and it is always rejuvenating their cellular structure. They are not getting the harmful rays of the sun for aging, right? I mean, all this makes sense, right? So Dr. Frank spoke a lot about going on the ship, and when you went on the ship, If you wore glasses, you would take them off. You would have 20/20 vision. If you walked with a cane, you could walk perfectly. One time he told me he was going, and he called me that weekend, and I said, oh, I thought you were going to be out visiting with them on the craft. And he said, I'm calling you from the ship. And I said, well, you sound extremely young. And he said, that's why I'm calling you from the ship. He did not sound like a man in his 70s. He sounded like a man in his 40s, right? His voice was quite robust and young. So, and he explained to me that if he from home wanted to call the ship, he just pressed like 2 numbers and it would connect to the craft as well. So these are, I tell you these things because these are questions that people usually say, you can't live on Venus, it's burning, boiling hot. But this is the reasoning why they all live on the interiors of planets, and that a lot of the motherships are built like planets, and they have all these various different floors, and whatever your heart's desire is there, their job is to make sure every human being, every being is perfectly happy and content with their life and their life's purpose. Now, wouldn't that be an amazing thing to experience just for a day for one of us, right? So anyway, so he arrived. There was a 3-year period where he would stay to discuss what was in the proposal, the dangers of atomics, etc., plus what it caused in the rippling out of atomics that went out, not only would tilt the Earth a little off its axis, but ripple out into the universe and affect other planets, but also affect planets interdimensionally. Now, it's really fascinating because in the Tehran books, they share with me that they are multidimensional, and some of their craft can be in every dimension at the same time with a different crew. And they only have to think about walking from one dimension to the next, because they are always calculating and measuring the in between the dimensions, how it is affecting each dimension, like what I just explained with the Earth. I want to just sort of tell you one thing while I've got it here. Let me just find it really quick. Like for instance, in the ET Almanac, under clarions, we have a photograph of a male clarion and a female clarion. The male clarion's name is Sewell, and he's been here, I think, for over 80 years. And he is here because him and other clarions want to be on the planet because their vibration is so high, it will help to raise it up. But also the female, her name is Nelfa, and she is studied in astrobiology and chronoastronomy dimensional. So that basically means she deals with relating to time in the universe and between the dimensions. Isn't that fascinating? He is also in contact with a Venusian time operator. Isn't that fascinating? And I've seen a picture of him as well. It's not in the book, but he is a very interesting looking fellow. Human, of course, but different than what we might expect. So being a time operator, he calculates the time wave fluctuations between distances in the universe and the dimensions, right? So anyway, so Thor is here now for for 3 years. Over this 3 years, the military industrial complex basically want to get at his organic technology. All they have in their possession are the regular ships that they've caught from the Greys and things that they have at Roswell, but they don't have organic technology. Actually, they had gifted them one before Thor arrived, and they can't figure out how to get into it. But of course they can't, because the commander has to be there, whose DNA structure is a part of the craft, is the only one that can open or fly that ship, right? So anyway, throughout this entire time that he's here, he befriends Richard Nixon, because the president pretty much was busy with a lot of stuff, although they had several meetings. He lived 3 stories down below the Pentagon in a Pentagon apartment. All his clothes was provided for him. He wore blue suits, although his suits in some of the pictures look black. They are blue, they're dark blue. He always wore a white tie. If you know, it took me a while to notice that, and I asked Dr. Frank about that. And these photographs from the Menger farm were taken somewhere in 1958. So he has now been here for about 1.5 years. This is my take on it. And I didn't come to this take until after Dr. Frank had passed in 2008. But I believed that when he sort of felt that his mission was not going to go the way that he had thought he was going to be able to help humanity, that he wanted to go somewhere where he could be photographed so that there would be a record. And so he brought his vice commander, Dawn, with him, who is in the photograph here looking straight in, and the lady with the blonde hair looking straight ahead in the white blouse, that is Jill. Jill is the wife of Vice Commander Zan. So on Valiant Thor's crew, his Victor class saucer is 300 feet in diameter. It is double-deckered with 2 floors. It has a crew of 200 people. The vice commanders are Dawn, Teal, Thon, Thonn, and Zan. And Zan is Jill's husband. Now, there is also another created being like Val on board Victor 1. His name is Yanaya, and he is a Melchizedekian master. And his associate's name is Yo, or Yeo, Y-E-O. And he's a very tall, slender man. And so this is the main crew. And then the rest of the crew is shifted out every 3 months. And then they go to a different craft under a different commander, and they take on a different job. So this is how their society works, that everyone learns each job. They go from learning facility. Can you imagine going and being taught by created being commanders on craft? That would just be absolutely amazing. So they get shifted out. His craft is stationed at Lake Mead. It was originally in Henderson, Nevada, until they started building all the homes. And so they had to move, and they moved it to a special coordinates at Lake Mead because of taking off and landing capabilities. And so the rest of the craft are Victor. So his is Victor 1, the rest are Victor 2, Victor 3, Victor 4, and it goes all the way up. And so anyway, let me see, let me just digress and get to a backup. So these photographs are taken. So this is in High Bridge, New Jersey. Now, at this same thing, of course, it's at Howard Menger's farm. He's married to Rose at the time. The little boy running around with the cowboy hat is their son, right? And if anybody knows who James Mosley was, yep. James Mosley, when he was a young tyke, is like beyond this lady in the black hair over to the left. He's sitting there looking straight ahead. And Gray Barker is also, Gray Barker was also here at this meeting. Now, we don't know if Gray Barker knew it because he's literally sitting next to Valiant Thor. We do not know if he knew that he was from somewhere else. Now, August Roberts, who's a retired Air Force photographer and was one of the top ufologists at the time because he had the largest collection of UFO photographs in the world. So he's there and he notices that Valiant's hands have no fingerprints, palm prints, that it's as bald as a peeled boiled egg, right? Valiant explained to Dr. Frank later that it means that he is not marked because he is of the Godhead or of Source, however you want to look at it, right? So they are not marked. Now, so Augie notices that he has spoken a few different languages, and when Valiant looked at him, he looked right through him. He saw him look into his soul and read his soul energy and said it was like the most terrifying and exhilarating thing he had ever felt. So he focused the day on taking over 200 photographs, right? What we have online is really all that's there. We don't know what happened to the other photographs when he passed all those years ago. I've tried to find it to no success. And some people who knew him, they don't even know where those photos have gone. So he after the meeting is over, he went in the house and talked to Howard, and he said, "Did that man give you the secret handshake?" And he said, "Yes, he did." Because when a visitor came to the farm, because they looked like us, they would give Howard a secret handshake so he knew that they were a visitor. So that's how he knew. So now, this is New Jersey. August lives in New Jersey. Dr. Frank Stranges lives in New Jersey with his first wife, Bernice. August Roberts calls Dr. Frank and says, "I have to show you something." He said, "Come over tomorrow." He comes over, he shows him the photograph, and Dr. Frank said, "Well, what makes you think he's not from here? Because he looks just like us." And he went on to explain it. So Dr. Frank was a Christian minister, but he was more open, I would say, to views of that was not against racial or sexual tensions that we had had over the years and things like that, especially way back in this time. But he spoke about UFOs in the Bible. So he is asked in December of 1959 to speak at a church for 2 weeks. I was given his Bible by his wife when he passed away. And in that Bible were all his notes. And I have all his notes, even from those 2 weeks. And even when he spoke about UFOs in the Bible, when he met Nancy Warren from the Pentagon, right? So he would have on a board, he would have George Adamski's picture and the Venusian craft. He would tell that story. He would talk about Ezekiel. He would have other things. All those big cards I now have in my possession since I'm making the feature film and TV series, documentaries, etc. I was given that task by Dr. Frank and Valiant. They wanted me to be the one who was the head of it and to spearhead it. So I'm the one who owns all the rights. So, with this was making the short film was to help raise financing. We now have everything ready for the feature film, the documentary film. And then what I would like to do next is a TV series that takes us throughout the decades, right? Because Valiant did come back in '61 and he has been here ever since. He is not leaving until this planet is transformed. So that's the good news. We have a lot of angelic presence here. I look at him as an angel. Any created being to me is an angel, right? So, so now he talks about this, and in the middle of all these photographs on his board at this church when he's speaking, he has Valiant Thor's picture. This picture right here that we're seeing on the screen, he just cut it out where it's just Valiant. He then told the story that I just told you, that Augie told him, and he said this is of an alleged man from somewhere else. And after the meeting, he was approached by a woman who showed him her Pentagon badge, and she pointed to the picture of Val and she said, he wants to meet with you. And Dr. Frank was just shocked and stunned. And they went into the back room and had a conversation. And she said, I will pick you up at your hotel tomorrow morning at 8 a.m. She did. She brought him to the Pentagon. Of course, she had a Pentagon badge. He did not. And as they're walking into the lobby, he started getting antsy and wanted to turn around and leave. But once he started to, there were too many people filed in. So she said, look, just do what I do. Just do what I do. And so she opened her coat, showed her badge. He opened his coat and he got through. They get to the next station. He didn't know there was going to be number 2 station. So he's flipping out a little bit. Same thing happens. He gets through. They walk down a hallway and they get to an empty door. And she said, he's in there. And she starts to walk away. And he said, how am I going to get out of here? And she said, the same way you came in. So he opened the door and the door was open and he's standing in the doorway there. And he sees like a sergeant, a major, and they're busy working, typing on the phone. There's another guy off to the right, and nobody is paying any attention to him. And he cleared his throat and said, excuse me. And they still didn't look at him. And then all of a sudden, from behind the door, Valiant Thor stood up and said, hello, Frank, nice to meet you. And this is where I believe we learned of the name Valiant Thor. I'm not, the only thing that I'm not sure is if Augie knew the name from Howard or if this is the origin of it. That's the only thing that I am unaware of. But he did say, my name is Valiant Thor. They sat down. The entire conversation that they had, none of the guys in the room ever looked at them. It was like as if they weren't even there. Val talked to him a little bit about personal things that Dr. Frank didn't know. And then he allowed him to hold his spacesuit. He had brought it for him to examine. And it had the boots in it and all. And I think it weighed something like 6 ounces or a little over 6 ounces. And he said, I've given this to your government and they've tried a maser on it. They didn't have laser technology back then. They tried to cut it with a diamond drill. They've poured acid on it and nothing will tear it or break it. And so after this meeting, he boarded a plane, went back to New Jersey. There's a whole nother part of the story where he's picked up by the FBI and brought in for questioning about how he got in there and what did Valiant Thor tell him. But he ends up going to his parents' house after that and asking them things that Val said, which they confirmed. And so he told the story, and his father was a little trepidatious about it and that sort of thing. But at one point during this, before Valiant left, his father actually met him, and so did his mother, because when he was once in an Italian, you know, the old Italians went to the market. You went to the bread market. You went to the vegetable market. You went to the meat market. And he was getting on the bus, and Valiant approached him and said, "Let me help you, sir," and got on the bus with him. And he said, "Oh, is your son Frank?" And he said, "Yes." He said, "Oh, you know my Frankie?" And he said, "Yes, very well." And anyway, they went in, and he got off the bus with him, walked him home. And anyway, they invited him to dinner. He said, "No, thank you, I must be going." And they watched him leave, and they watched him vanish in thin air. And then they ran to the photograph that Frank gave them, and they realized it was him. So
let me jump in here if I may, because unfortunately, I think it speaks about the value of these meetings, that it allows you to despite my interruption, allows you to tell your story in its entirety without having to go to breaks and everything else like a normal radio show. But that being said, that's just a some self-promotion for Joe on the meeting. But there's a number of questions I want to get to quickly, if I may, because I don't want the folks to think that we're ignoring their questions. Jen Stein asked, do you know if Val or any of his team had met with James Forrestal while they were here visiting?
I do not know that.
Okay. I think that's an interesting tie-in.
Yeah, I do too.
Susan Johnson asked, have you ever seen the white eagle in your meditation? And if so, what does that symbolize, if you have any knowledge about that?
I don't know what a white eagle means, but I would assume it would mean something really, really good, especially a white eagle. Yes.
Have you seen, and this also comes from Susan Johnson, you've seen the Taurus and the Cygnusians, or have you seen the red and paper white Palladians? Does that resonate with anything?
Is that their skin color, red and pepper white?
Evidently.
No, I have not seen those. That's amazing. I want to learn more about them.
Nick, and certainly maybe Susan can connect with you after the meeting to go into great detail on that, and maybe you both have some common ground there. Nick had a number of questions, some of which you did address, and that's why, just in terms of the logistics, we try to not interfere with the presentation, and that's why texting in your questions gives us the opportunity to follow them up out there. But anyway, Nick had a number of questions.
Also, Bruce, just to let you know,
yes,
it's going to be a panel period. We could do it in 5 minutes, or we could do it now. To ask their questions, then we can get into the questions from the rest of the audience. Because I want everybody to be involved, but I also want to keep the structure to the to what we're doing right now.
Thanks for explaining that.
Yeah.
So let's go ahead, Joe.
Let's take questions. Questions.
Absolutely.
Okay. First for the panel, Jen, you texted your question. Do you have
follow up?
Jen's okay.
Yeah,
all right.
I texted my question. I have to cook, so I got to the kitchen.
Sorry, Jen.
What time should we get there?
Yeah, really, I don't think so.
I'll mute myself.
Yeah.
Okay.
No,
all right.
Thank you, Jen.
Well, let's go to Nick. Nick, you got any comments, concerns?
Right. He did. Craig did answer the questions I had. Just a quick, one. Did he eat meat? What did he eat during his long stay here? Was he a vegetarian?
Yes, he was a vegetarian. All of them are vegetarian, as a matter of fact, but they do. This was even before we had our different types of Gardein and fake meats. They have something that they made, I think it was from some type of cactus plant, Dr. Frank told me, which was that could be made into a meat substitute that Dr. Frank would eat when he went to the craft. So if Dr. Frank wanted a steak, he could eat a steak, but it wouldn't be a steak. But Dr. Frank said that they could marry what his favorite taste of the steak was like into that steak. Wow. That wasn't a steak. Now, here's the other thing that they had, and Dr. Frank had given me some. Before Val ate anything on Earth, he had these little white spirals, and he would put them in, he would drop it in water, it would fizz, and he would drink it, and it would kill any organisms or anything that was in the food that he was going to put into his body. Dr. Frank said he ate very little. It would usually be a very small salad, something like that. He said if some of the other crew members wanted to eat something that was like meat, they would always, of course, have that fake meat. There was also another contactee that was even well before Dr. Frank that Val and Dawn were quite friends with, who was a very, an older Japanese man. And all I know is his name was Dr. Lee. And Dr. Lee lived in Van Nuys. I found out about Dr. Lee like halfway through knowing Dr. Frank, because he said, oh, I just went to the movies with Dr. Lee, and he said he saw Sky Captain in the World of Tomorrow, and he saw that you were one of the casting directors. And I said, yeah. And he said he really enjoyed that movie. And I said, who's Dr. Lee? And he said, oh, he's been friends with Val and Dawn for a long, 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 long time. And as a matter of fact, his son met a woman on board craft, married her, and stayed on the starship. So wow. In the 70s, he stopped aging, and that's where he lives. And it was either a little before Dr. Frank died or a little after. Dr. Lee was so old that they brought him to the ship to live for good. So, yeah. But wow. They used to put the meat, they would like send the meat into Dr. Lee's refrigerator for him to eat, because that's what he liked. The fake meat. Yeah.
Thank you so much. Very, very interesting.
Yeah, okay. It is, isn't it?
All right, George Filer, can you hear me? Wave if you can. He can hear, but he can't talk. Okay. All right. Bruce Cornett, do you have anything that you'd like to ask or contribute here? Okay, I do have something myself. Okay, it was, and something that Jennifer Stein mentioned earlier when she was talking about Travis Walton. She mentioned that he viewed the Tic Tac-like object, the saucer that he was brought in on, and also a shiny silver egg-like vehicle. The interesting thing is that there are a number of descriptions of vehicles, some of which I think came out of the Val Thor story with Victor 1 and their larger ships or their scout ships. Also from the one of the Val Thor stories, I think it came out of Dr. Strange's book, I believe. When I was doing research, I noticed that they had a breakdown that there were 216, I think, Victor 1 type craft scattered around the Earth. There were like, I think, 24 in the North and South Pacific Ocean. There were X number in the North and South Atlantic. There was also so many scattered around in various countries. Now, based upon that description, and based upon something that has been observed very closely, especially in the North Pacific or Central Pacific, were spheres, shiny silver spheres. Were they also part and parcel of the Venusian or the Val Thor story?
Well, I don't know if the spheres are. I know that a lot of scout ships are spherical because they either hold one or three in a scout ship, or they can be an unmanned scout ship that goes out and just collects materials.
Okay.
Or the Victor class saucers, by the way, on the Stranger at the Pentagon.com website under, I think, Buy Book and DVD, where I have the posters. I have a poster of Victor 1 and the actual blueprints to it, with all of the different rooms and everything that is on the craft. So all those crafts are identical to the Victor 1. And now I can't remember the total of ships, but the ships monitor 287 locations in and around the Earth. Now, you have to remember that they have super biological computers. These computers, of course, are organic, and they can measure every living thing in time sequence on the planet, and it can detect thought patterns. So if there are evil people who are thinking about doing things, they can check in on them. They can look to see if they're actually going to perpetrate this. It's been explained to me that they bring this information to see if there is something that, if it looks like it's going to be something very disastrous, that maybe they can help with the ease of it. But sometimes it is left for us because it's a learning thing for our society as well. They're definitely not going to let us blow up the planet. That's not going to happen. They've already shown all the militaries around the world that they can stop and start their nuclear warheads. That's all that that's about. They're not here to take over the world. They would have taken over the world. Right. So they're just waiting for us to catch up, but they're also monitoring the malevolent extraterrestrials that are here, that are raping and pillaging the planet for resources and genetic materials against people's wills and things like that as well. So, so there's a big dichotomy, and you have to think about, can you imagine being one of them on a craft and being able to see everything that happens on Earth, the atrocities that we don't even ever hear about, what that must do to your emotional psyche? So that is also a part of the resonation fields that they have that keeps them balanced, that keeps their emotions also balanced, because it still affects them and they still cry and they still have such empathy for humanity and are praying that we can climb out of this cesspool and rejoin universal society and start going to their worlds on excursions and field trips and back and forth. Teal, who's the vice commander, she is a extraordinaire universal teacher. She teaches Earth people, and she also teaches Earth people about the universe, and she teaches the people of the universe about our world, about duality, because duality is so foreign to them because they are fully conscious. So it's quite amazing. And they all have full-blown divine power. They can heal at will. They can do all kinds of things. I was hospitalized once. I ate something, and the next day I was in bed with a sick stomach. And then the next day it was worse. And then on the third day, I had to call a friend to take me to the doctor. She brought me to the doctor. They tried giving me stuff for my stomach. It just wouldn't go away. They put me in an ambulance, rushed me to the hospital. They did x-rays. They said I had a bowel obstruction and that they were going to have to operate the next day. So I am in the hospital. My friend says goodbye to me late that night. And in the middle of the night, I felt Teal standing over me. I woke up in twilight. I felt her standing over me. And I felt her hand going across my body. And in my stomach, I felt a zillion little tiny bubbles moving through my intestines. And then I went back to sleep. And when I woke up in the morning, sitting at my bedside was Dr. Frank. And he said, Teal called me early this morning and told me to get down here and tell you she fixed you up last night. And I said, it's all gone. All the pain is gone. It's gone. And so when they came in, I said, look, I'm feeling much better. Please give me another x-ray because you don't have to do an operation. And they did, and everything was fine. I know, isn't that amazing, Jen? I know, isn't that? It was one of the coolest things ever.
I had an appendicitis attack and asked for help, and boom, it was
right
gone.
There. Yes.
But I was only 11 years old.
Oh,
I was having a hard time with this for about 10 years of my life. But thank you for sharing this story.
Yes, it's one that I like to share because it shows how beautiful they are and in helping, but it also showed me that she called Dr. Frank and he jumped in his car and he drove down there and was sitting at my bedside and stayed with me until I was able to come home. So I know that this has happened for several people. I mean, for me, it was just amazing. Teal was throughout the entire writing process for many, many years on The Stranger at the Pentagon screenplay. I had my own personal teacher that was there inside my head every single day, showing me how to work through different situations, or it would be beautiful if you would say it this way and you wouldn't harm the other. It would be wonderful if you said this, or try this and see how this works for you, and things like that. Things that were happening in my personal life and what we were doing also throughout the screenplay. So, but what was fascinating with the screenplay is after I finished the first draft, I drove out to Dr. Frank to give him a hard copy. And he said that next time he saw Val, he would give it to him. And he called me a couple of weeks later and he said, I saw the commander, he held it in his hands and he absorbed it. And I said, did he have any notes? And he said, no, he just said to tell you, nice job. And I said, really, no notes? And he goes, well, I have a few. So he gave me a few of his notes. And I promptly came home. I put them into the thing. I went to bed. And I woke up the next morning, and like the rings of Saturn spinning around my head were all of Valiant Thor's notes, which was being downloaded into my head. So I would get downloads every time I would finish a draft on how and where they wanted it to go. So, because, you know, you have to remember that there's the gap of the things that actually happened to him there at the Pentagon that nobody was privy to, right? So now, mind you, of course, in the feature film, we are taking dramatic license at the end. We have to, but I will always give that disclaimer to people because it's a movie and you have to do it, otherwise you can't sell it, right? But the basis and the spiritualness of the story remains intact. So, yeah.
Okay. Bruce Pearson, you have any comments or questions?
Yeah, just one, if I may, investigative reporter in me. The other side of this coin, for the skeptics or the people that are nuts and bolts oriented, if you will, would go back to the fact and say, hey, obviously, if this guy was hanging out in the Pentagon, there's got to be some documentation. Has that ever been revealed? And do you have any of the scientific, if you will, side of this story? And one other sidebar, it's just weird, the synchronicities in my personal career. I lived for years 3 miles from Menger's place. I used to go by it to go to Masonic meetings once a week, right there off Route 31 in Clinton, or going into Highbridge. It's just ironic, the things that, and Joe has a direct connection with the farm also, with Menger also. So anyway, could you speak to the nuts and bolts issues? Because I don't want to take.
I can. So I myself have always said, look, we know that Nixon, we know that Valiant had interacted with several people. We know that he met the First Lady and Mrs. Nixon. And come on, if you've got a man from another world, you're going to take a picture, right? There's got to be some kind of photographic evidence somewhere. Again, anyone out there who might have access to this, feel free to send it to me, who finds their way to this recording. But I will tell you what I found, and I'm just trying to look it up here in my computer, which I found extremely interesting. Let's see. Here we go. All right. Okay, so I'm going to sort of run through this. So Nixon wrote a time capsule, right? And there was a former Houston Plan operative named Robert Merritt, who was an undercover operative. He met with Nixon 3 times at the White House in 1972. He was an undercover informant for Washington, D.C. Police Department, the FBI, and the ATF, the Bureau of Alcohol, Firearms, and Tobacco. And he spied on different aspects of radical groups that had caused problems for the Nixon administration. Let's see. So after his 3rd meeting with Merritt, Nixon, this was after the Watergate break-in. So Nixon trusted Merritt at this time. And let's see, he brought him, a man would pick Merritt up, bring him to a darkened room beneath the White House to meet with Nixon. He wanted Merritt to be a special courier to a high official. Info was above top secret and referred to as the UFO file. Let's see, let me just find this part. So Robert Merritt in 2018 was fighting cancer, terminal cancer, so he has passed away. And he reached out to attorney Douglas Caddy for help on finding a time capsule letter allegedly hidden by Nixon in July of 1972 after the Watergate break-in. Caddy put Merritt in touch with dark journalist Daniel Litzt. Am I saying that right, Litzt? All right. Merritt told Litz that in his 3rd secret meeting with President Nixon in July of 1972, that President Nixon read out loud a letter to the American people about an advanced being from somewhere else in the universe, or perhaps even from a different universe, that the US government had in protection and was teaching some scientists vast quantities of powerful information about physical laws and an equation that could help all of humanity. Now, isn't that fascinating? That just came out of the blue from this article. Now, I do know that Dr. Frank told me, because back then NASA was in its early stages of beginning, and that they were asking Val that they were having problems with the spacesuits and that they couldn't regulate them right. And Dr. Frank said that he helped them develop a pill where they wouldn't get sick when they were in their suits and doing the space stuff. So we know that he was helping and working with NASA in a capacity. Now, the one thing we do know is he's not going to let out any kind of technical information that they could use for harm of the planet. But I have, and again, this is just me, I still think he's probably overseeing and helping and they're being a part of it because he's still on the planet. So,
wow.
And wouldn't you, if you were created being the best place to be is on the front lines to make sure that nothing is going to go wrong?
Of course, the oversight is part of it.
Yes.
Follow-up question: do you know, with regard to Washington and so on, do you? Jen asked, do you have any idea of whether the 52 Capitol UFO flap had anything to do with Val? You know, this was prior to his official arrival, if you will.
Yes. You know, I'm not sure about that, but I do know that they. He had been here before, but not in an official capacity.
Okay.
And
you don't
many times before.
Do you know, about going back to the prior question? Do you know if has there been any FOIA or any tangential release of documentation from the Pentagon or from the military side that would at least insinuate or point to the fact that maybe he was acknowledged in the military at some level, or DOD or whatever? Have you ever seen any of that? Has any of that come forward?
I haven't, and I've looked, and I've also looked on the Black Vault
with Greenwald. Yeah. So if anybody would know,
Greenwood would, and I've asked Greenwald as well if he's run across anything, and he is not. Here is what, of course, this was the government cover-up of all government cover-ups, right?
Yes.
Honestly, so it's a deep dive to find this information unless somebody brings it forward. This is why I believe he left the Pentagon and went to the Menger farm to have this done, because he probably saw, of course, through his foresight, that these photos would be taken. It would connect him to Dr. Frank. Mm-hmm. Dr. Frank would come and meet with him. Dr. Frank would first write a little book, My Friend from Beyond Earth, which was a little pamphlet that told the story. And then in '67, he came out with a more elaborate,
extensive,
which really was just vignettes of stories and really was not in a good form yet. There were two other revisions that told more vignettes of the story and things like that. So when I was asked to write the screenplay, I told Dr. Frank, I'm going to have to sit with you for quite some time for you to help me fill in the gaps. And I would literally see him every week, at least twice a week. And I was on the phone with him either every day or every other day.
Wow.
And he was so funny. I mean, he had the greatest sense of humor. And he was one of the kindest, sweetest men around. And there's just, I mean, I read the book in the 80s and I thought it was fascinating. And when I saw the photos of Valiant, I thought, wow, that, to me, that resonates real. I just always felt that way. And interestingly enough, because of being having these empathy abilities, when I moved into my place here 19 years ago, I had set up my couches. I hadn't thought about Valiant Thor story or Stranger at the Pentagon in many, many years. All of a sudden, I started seeing Valiant Thor and his vice commander sitting on my couch in an energetic form. I was like, what are they doing here? I just didn't understand. But every day I would feel the vibration of them right there. And it went on for months. And then my casting partner, Joy Todd, she said, my friends from Arizona are coming in, and you've got to meet them. They see UFOs all the time, and you're going to just love them. They were an elderly couple. And so I met them, and the wife, sweet, she just looked like little Mrs. Santa Claus with a cute little Southern voice. And she said, well, you know, Craig, our friend, Dr. Frank. And I said, strangers? And she goes, yeah, you want to meet him? And I said, yeah. And I literally was meeting him like the following week. We had a long lunch, me and his secretary. And I thought that was it. I thought, I'm going to be the fan. It's a fan lunch and this is going to be great.
Yeah.
And we ended up staying in touch. And somebody else had called him about making the movie, and he wanted me to go to the meeting with them. And the guy was bogus. I looked him up and et cetera. And I said, you're not getting involved with this individual. I said, I've already put the kibosh on it, right? So literally I watched a tear escape his eyes, and I had heard all the stories throughout the years of the starts and stops of trying to get it done. Mm-hmm. And honestly, I did not want to do it. I was so busy with all of my other work. And I kept saying, look, Frank, I'm going to show you. You can't make this into a movie. It's just vignettes of stories. Right? And then I find myself saying, but I can come over to your house and I can help. You can help me fill in the blanks.
Been there, done that. And
I'm saying that. I'm saying that. I'm actually saying that.
Yep.
You know, and so I find myself doing it, and then I realize them sitting on my couch was them connecting me to Frank to do the movie, to get this movie going. And then I realized that 10 years prior, one of the beings that had visited me telepathically inside my head with the click was Teal. And the other created being, Unaya. And it all comes full forward because when Frank said to me, oh, by the way, Teal said to say hello. And I said, who's that? And he said, she's a vice commander on the ship. And I said, she have green eyes, red hair? And he said, yes. And,
wow.
And he said, how do you know that? I said, I've seen her. I saw her like 10 years ago. She was standing in front of a metallic craft, which I assume is Victor 1. And she was smiling from ear to ear. And then he said to me, and oh, brother, is she stacked? Because she is Rubenesque. She has got this gorgeous Rubenesque body with very voluptuous on the top, and in a powder blue uniform, right? And the one
stunning.
Stunning. And the one thing he said to me, he said, you know, when you were on board the craft, he said, everybody is very proud about how they look. This is how the creator created them. And they love everything. They don't have any qualms about their looks. If they're if they're too skinny, if they're too this, if they're not pretty enough, if they're not that, they all know that they're perfect.
Nice.
And he said they don't have body issues. They don't have any of those issues like all of us have down here. And that really sort of put it into perspective for me. So, yeah. Okay. Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, we have about 10 minutes, and I really would like to get everybody involved that would like to be involved. We'll take comments. Bruce, I don't know how you want to do this.
Well, let's just run down the line. Let's do a roll call here based on the attendance list. So okay. I guess Mr. Filer is not able to get his audio running. So let's go on. George, jump in. George Filer, if you can talk to us, if you get it going, but I'm guessing you can't. So let's go. Go ahead, Joe.
I was going to say, I think Bruce Cornett's the next on the list.
Yes. Go ahead, Mr. Cornett.
Hello, Craig.
Hi, Bruce.
I would very much like to know how recent is much of this information. Are you still in contact with those aboard the ships?
Well, when I write is when like they're around, or if there is a message or something like that, I'll just hear it.
It's interesting.
I have not. I wish I could meet them in person. I mean, everybody wishes that. I have met about 5 people who have met Valiant in person, and they all don't know each other, and they're all truly fascinating stories. One was a woman whose father worked in the military, and they brought him out to meet, and it was actually with Dr. Frank and Val in the middle of the desert. Another person is a friend of Frank Chili's, Judy Beebe. She had, I think, 2 encounters with him when he was here in those early days as well. And then some, and of course, the 2 people that introduced me to Dr. Frank, they had both met Valiant with Dr. Frank in the early 60s when he came back the second time after he left for a year and came back on March 16th, 1961.
Okay.
You also mentioned that Valiant Thor is still here on Earth. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Wow.
Yes. It is said that he will not leave until the planet has transformed into full consciousness and becomes reunited with universal society.
Well, you need to get in touch with Susan, who is also listening to this. She has information about the Washington flyover. I put that in chat.
Nice. Yeah, we'll connect, Susan.
Okay, let's go down the list. I think Susan's on here, right? When we get to her, we'll give her a shot there, Bruce. Okay.
Okay.
All right, Cassandra Levine, do you have anything you'd like to question or share or whatever? Oh, mute. You're muted. Unmute. Oh, you're still muted.
Oh, there we go.
There we go. There we go.
I'm so appreciative of the quality and the really high level information that's being shared here. I've not had an opportunity to connect with groupings like this. The last time that I had a full opportunity with full exposure was at MUFON conference July, 2017. So that's like 3 years ago. And at that time it was very special because we combined my ordination at Lake Mead. So it was, yes, it was very
how nice.
Yes, and I have a picture of the woman that, and my very good friend, Reverend Dr. Deborah Champion, who ordained me in the water of Lake Mead. And as we were leaving, we were taking pictures up in the sky because we just felt love pouring down at us. But we couldn't see it visually with our eyes, but we could certainly see on on the pictures that came back, circular rings with stars in the middle of the circular rings. And we just felt like they were guiding us out and protecting us all the way. So hearing a lot of this information has been very comforting. And I just wish Frank was able to be here with us this afternoon.
Oh, he is. I know he's right here on my shoulder. I miss him so much, and I love him so much.
Oh,
he really was a second father to me. And but yes, every time when you feel that, always take your camera and take pictures, because that means that they are there, and that a lot of times the camera will capture it. And the night of the Burbank Film Festival for the award show, after we won for Best Sci-Fi Short, when I was out in the parking lot with my friend, I heard "Look Up." And I looked up, and it was a full moon and clouds, scattered clouds, and there were several ships inside the clouds moving around, and I snapped a whole big succession of pictures and saw them in each picture. They were darting around in different places. So they do, just so you know how they know of star seeds, they have us all connected on a blue beam. This blue beam is hooked up to a gigantic super biological computer. It fluctuates to your emotional range. So if there's danger that happens to you, or if there's something they know, and they can be there and try to assist a few times. I mean, Dr. Frank had a few harrowing incidents in his lifetime, and they were right there to help rectify it. So, and as Teal did for me, but they love us more than we can even understand, but we can feel it.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. You got so much light in you, Cassandra.
Thank you. God bless you.
Okay, to be the Grinch, we're going to keep things moving. Now, we started late, so I'm more than happy to let it go on a little bit late, but I do want to give everybody a chance. So we're going on. The next one on the list is Diane, D-Y-A-N, no last name. Diane, are you there? If you are there, you can unmute yourself, ask your question, or make your comment. Going once, going twice. Okay, next on the list would be Maggie. Maggie, are you there? And if you are there, would you like to make a comment?
Oh, if it's the Maggie I know, you better show up, Maggie.
Hello?
Hello, you're there.
Oh, I'm here. Yay. Craig, thank you. Thank you, everyone. This was just fantastic. It was so excited to get your book. I can't wait.
I can't wait either. How are you?
I'm good. I'm really good.
Yay.
Thank you all so much. This was just perfect for this kind of day.
Well, welcome, Maggie. Welcome.
Thank you.
Welcome. I'm so happy to connect, Maggie.
Same here. Wonderful to hear your voice and all the good news.
Okay. You too.
Okay. Thank you, Maggie. Next on the list, I think, is Melinda. Melinda Applegate. How are you doing? You're muted. Muted. Unmute.
Okay.
There
All
we
right.
go.
Okay. Technology, we love it. Wow, well, I have so many questions, but I think I'm interested in portals right now, and I'm wondering if there's a desire for us to move on to a higher consciousness, and it's happening anyway. I'm about to go with some friends to this waterfall that's supposed to be a high big traffic, big highway portal. And I was wondering what you know about with waterfalls and those being portals, and if that is true.
Well, I've not studied it, but I would imagine just because of the the energy that a waterfall produces, that portals are really basically opened by consciousness, and somebody starts them. It's like the inner space continuum of how they take ships throughout the universe. Somebody created those tunnels long ago, and it's the same aspect. So it can be done in a dark or a light thing. So usually when people are summoning dark stuff through a Ouija board or something like that, they're opening in a portal. And if they don't close that portal, that crap can continually come in and get at people. And there's been many documented things about that. Like for instance, the 3 portals in my first apartment were created by the advanced beings for them to come and go, right? And then when I moved, I wanted to walk back in and see what it was, and it was just dead. It was all gone. Like every place I go to, and when I go to the new place, all the portals go. And because when I used to have giant UFO parties, I would have ufologists over. I would cram 100 people into my apartment. Everyone is like scrunched in, and I would feed everybody, and people would just be blown away by the information and that kind of thing. But here's the thing, nobody would leave my house. They just kept saying, oh, it feels so good in here. Oh my God, I'm in nirvana. And I'm like, no, but you have to go. It's like 3 in the morning. So strangely enough, when I moved into the condo I'm in now, I had the main portal energy put upstairs in my meditation room, and the others, so it wouldn't really affect people, because it's really hard to get people out of your house when you have the good portals.
So, wow. All right.
Yeah.
Well, thank you.
Yeah,
and thank you so much for all this.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Okay. Next on the list, Mindy Gerber.
Hi,
buddy,
everybody.
Mindy.
Hi. I just want to say thank you to Joe and Bruce and Craig. It's just been a wonderful experience listening to Craig talk about all these amazing experiences. So no further questions, just a big thank you.
Okay, thanks, Mindy. Okay, let's go on to the next. Sonia Rogosic. Sonia, are you there?
No, I don't have any questions, but I'm just enjoying it. I just have to get that book. I can't wait to read the book. Thank you.
Oh, he's got a couple of them.
Yes. I want to get that latest one.
Yeah, autobiography of an ET, ANET.com, and then click on other books.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome, sweetie.
Okay, my friend Stanley Nazimic. Stanley, are you out there? I know you're out there.
He's out here, more away from one, obviously. I got a quick question for you. Tell me about your experiences at Mount Shasta.
Oh, wow. It was a beautiful experience. I went with some friends, and they had friends that had this big, beautiful house. And in their backyard, they had a giant 3-car garage that was a log cabin. And above it, they had a giant room that had a kitchen, a bed, a living room. And they said to me, you are going to be the lucky recipient of staying all by yourself out in this gorgeous, beautiful place. It had very high ceilings as well. So I had done a meditation, had a little tea, I went to bed. I astrally left my body conscious. I floated up to the ceiling. I looked down at my body lying on the bed, and slithering across the bed was a 12-inch glowing white snake. And it bit me between my thumb and finger, and my body sort of twitched. And then all of a sudden my body split into male and female, and I heard the voice of the I Am. You are who you are, we are who you are to be what we are in thee. And then they fused. my my masculine and feminine back into one, and then put me back inside my body. And then I woke up and was fully cognizant of that experience. And then the next day I went to, I was driving by myself to Panther Meadows to do a meditation on what had just happened. And on my way down, it's a very beautiful drive going through the pine trees and everything. And then all of a sudden, right in front of me was a 12-inch bright, shiny black snake. And before I could stop, my car ran it over. And I heard them say, now your duality is complete, meaning the white and the black, the white snake from before, and then from the ethereal, from the celestial realm, and then from the physical realm, the black snake was complete. And then that's when I started to notice that I had a heart indentation on my forehead. So so really it's just writing about it's really writing about love and about the universe has been my life's work.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. Okay, and also next on the list, Eco Redondo. Are you there?
Hi, can you hear me?
I hear you.
Oh, great. Yeah, my name is Chantal, and first of all, I just want to say thank you so much for the education, because I've gone to a couple of UFO and MUFON conferences, but this is really over the top. So I have so much
I hope
to
in
learn.
a good way.
Yes, no, really. And I sure hope I'm working really hard on my consciousness and its goodness. And so I hope someday I'll get to ride or get a look. I even took Stephen Greer's CE5 at Fredericksburg 2 years ago.
Nice.
Yeah, so I'm still waiting for an experience, but I've been researching this as a scientist, and I just feel like our education is so lacking of everything that we've been taught on so many fronts, and this is obviously a very big hole in our.
It is. Think of it in the terms of spiritual technology.
Yeah,
That's
it's so funny because I was at a MUFON conference, and met some guys that are investigators for MUFON, and we shared a lunch table, and I said, I just can't get my hands around this UFO. It's like a greased pig. And the guy says, think of it in terms of consciousness, and I just rolled my eyes. And then the next day he went and he got me this book about the similarities between NDE experiences and UFO experiences. And he says, here, this might help. And I thought, how kind. Here's a total stranger, who's bought me this book to help me, understand better and absorb this. So that was really great. The one question I had, because I just want to make it quick, do you have distribution for this film? Like the feature film that you're working on? Because I work for House of Film, which is a world distribution where we sell films all over the world. Yeah, look us up, House of Film. We go to all the major markets and stuff like that. And so anyway, we're always looking for outstanding content out of the box.
Yes.
So, well, I'm figuring you're going to go on UFO TV and all that stuff, but in terms of the wider picture, I don't know.
Well, the wider picture is for mainstream so that people understand the story, and now it's time to wake up the rest of the world, besides Starseeds and everybody else. But I will definitely look it up, and feel free to reach out to me. Feel free to reach out to me. You can do that on the websites too through the contact button.
Okay. Yeah. Can somebody type it into the chat so I can get the websites properly, this one and for the other one. That would be That would be great, because I got this email from, I got the notification from Carol Drudel, who's out of Lake Tahoe, which is the first experiencer I met, which is so funny. Really quickly, so I went to my first UFO conference. I do a lot of scientific conferences, anomalies, research kind of thing. And so I thought, okay, UFOs now. And I go there. The only person I know is John Alexander. So so anyway, so I bump into him, say hello. And then I says, God, I don't know anybody here. And so I meet this lady and I go, oh, wow, you know, what a nice outfit. And she starts talking to me and she says, well, I had my first experience in Redondo Beach on Avenue A. Well, hot diggity damn, I live in Redondo Beach and it's like 3 blocks away from me. So to me, that was like a sign, you know, like hitting me over the head, like, okay, you need to pay attention here, right?
Yeah.
So,
Wow.
So anyway, that's what that's about. So yeah, I'll contact you for sure. And again, thank you so much for
you're welcome.
Tremendous work.
Okay, I'm going to, before we sign off, I am going to give, if you look at the invitation to this Zoom session, my email and phone number is on there. Send me your contact information and I will forward it along to whomever you want.
Wonderful.
Want it to go to. I'll
Lovely.
send it to Craig and Frank and whoever. So
lovely. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. Okay. Now, the last one on my list, although there may be more, is Susan Rogers. Susan, do you have any comments or questions for Craig?
First of all, I want to say I'm so blown away that I can't. I'm sure there are a million questions that I have, but I can't really think straight because I'm just sort of. I want to thank you so much because this is just so great.
Welcome to my world.
Your world is unbelievable. My one question is this: are they monitoring us as individuals? Because I sometimes get that feeling.
Yes.
And they're waiting for us to come up to a certain level.
Yes. And especially if you have family, star family, and you are a starseed, they will particularly look after you. So you might see a lot of star family. I have so many stories about this from star seeds and stuff. That's like a whole nother show. But yes, they do. And if you feel it, then you know that they're there with you, and that should give you some comfort.
Thank you.
Yes.
Okay. Now there is one other person. I didn't see the name on the list, but I believe she's here. And if she's not, Bruce Cornett, I guess, can get the information to her. Susan Johnson, are you out there? Going once, going twice. Oh, I heard a mumble. No, okay. Anyway, that was the last of the names on the list. I think we got to everybody who wanted to ask a question or make a comment. Hopefully you all got a lot out of here. Craig gave us a lot of information. And there's, I'm sure, tons of information that is still available out there someplace. So maybe we can have another go around at some point.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
Jennifer like that. Jennifer's.
Yes. And Jennifer, you have to call me very soon.
I promise I'll get your text or your number from Joe.
Yes, please.
I'll send you some of my films too, just so you can have them.
Oh, I can't
maybe
wait.
we can talk about also distribution or film help with this project. If I can
help
in any way, it would be a great honor.
Yes, please. I need all the help I can get. And, and millions of dollars.
Okay.
Just go to the government. They're giving it away.
I'm printing in my basement right now. So, okay. As I just mentioned a moment ago, and this goes for everybody, if you want any information or you want to pass questions along or get your contact information to Craig or whomever, my email and phone number are on the invitation to the Zoom session. Please feel free to use it, and I will make sure it gets to whomever you would like it to go to. And you can have your own conversations then back and forth.
Yes.
Okay. And with that, I have nothing else. Craig, do you have any final goodbyes or anything you would like to
just always remember that the one question people ask me the most is, what can I do to make the world a better place? And that is to spiritually work on yourself, to raise your vibration, because once we as a collective consciousness raise to a certain standpoint, all of the evils and the horrific atrocities can no longer stand that vibration, and it will all cease.
Very good. Bruce, do you have anything you'd like to finish up on?
I just want to thank everybody for their patience. Hopefully we will not have the same problem again. And thank you all for your participation. And Craig, thank you so much. This was absolutely phenomenal, man. Great job. And I look forward to talking to you about film production and all that stuff down there.
Oh, absolutely. You got my number. Give me a shout. And Joe, thank you. And
thank you, Craig.
I guess Frank didn't make it on because I didn't see him.
Out of guilt, I'm going to be giving him a call as soon as we get off the call.
Well, he was trying. I just looked at my phone, which I had off, and he was calling me and texting me because he didn't. He was using that original link you sent me.
Right. And it wasn't ever getting to us.
Yeah, and he couldn't get on. So
well, he tried the new one too. I worked with him for a couple of minutes, and for whatever reason it just didn't work. Yeah.
Yep, I owe him another meal.
Yeah.
Be feeding him till the next millennium.
Absolutely.
He's a good man.
Okay. Well, this is
awesome.
Well, it's been awesome.
Susan is back on.
Oh, Susan, you there? No.
Anyway,
Susan Johnson.
Susan Johnson is going to contact you. Look for her email.
Okay, I will, for sure.
Okay. All right, everybody. The next scheduled one of these is the second Saturday in January. And Bruce Cornett is the scheduled speaker. So,
yay.
Bruce, we'll see you again.
Wow. Awesome. Okay. Thank you for the warning. I'll have some time to prepare.
Okay. All right. Thanks, everybody. Have a great holiday. Everyone. Have a great holiday season.
Be safe, everybody.
Thank
you for your joining us.
Everyone.
Be safe, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.
Linda.
Okay, bye.
Okay, we have stopped the recording, Joe.